What's up, everyone? This is take two of recording this part three. In the first version, there was like no audio, so this version now definitely has audio. So in this video, this is part three of our Claude series. The first two videos were on the Claude chat and then Claude Cowork. If you haven't watched those first two videos, I'd encourage you to go back and watch them first before coming back to this video. But essentially in this video of Claude Code tutorial for beginners, we're going to look at how to build a website from scratch, how to create two separate pages, and then how to merge them together. And we're also going to have a quick chat about MCPs at the end. So let's have a talk about what Claude Code actually is before we actually get into downloading our IDEs and setting up Claude Code. So in my opinion, Claude Code is the most powerful tool in the entire Claude lineup. And obviously most beginners are scared of this just because they see the terminal and they freak out. But luckily for you, in today's video, you can forget about the terminal and like in its entirety, because we're going to be installing Claude Code as an extension inside of an IDE, which I'll explain what that is in a moment. And you don't have to worry about any commands, no scary black box, and you don't need to be a developer. And by the end of this video, you will have used Claude Code to actually build something cool with an interactive tool, and you won't even have to write like a single line of code. I promise you that. So the way that I think about like the three different Claude versions is the chat version is just for thinking with you. The Cowork version is actually for working inside of your files, but Claude Code is actually building things from scratch for you. Now, Claude Code is basically an AI worker that can read your files, it can write code, it also can install software, run programs, and make changes to your computer. Now, the biggest difference between like Cowork and Claude Code is that Cowork can actually just edit your files, but Claude Code can actually build like entire programs. Like I'm talking websites, tools, scripts, things that you didn't even know existed before you asked it. Now, for a non-developer, this is the best path from AI helps me work to AI can now make software, which if you think about it, you can now make your like creation in your head come to life without dropping tens of thousands of dollars on dev tools or on devs like a dev team, which is pretty cool. Now, there are three main ways to use it. You can either use it in the terminal, which is obviously more of a developer way. You can use it in the Claude app, which is, yeah, so-so. But the best version is to use it inside of an IDE like Anti-Gravity, like VS Code, or like Cursor. Now, obviously Claude Code is from the Pro plan upwards. So if you have the free plan, unfortunately, you won't be able to get it. But if we come over to a browser and we look up some of these IDEs, we can actually download them before we actually get into the nitty gritty of everything. So if you literally just Google anti-gravity and click on the first link or VS Code, it doesn't matter which one you choose, all the IDEs function the same. You just want to click download up in the top because it will detect what system you have, and then you just want to install it like you would any other app, and you just want to set it up, and you'll be brought to a page that looks a lot like this once you've chosen a folder that you want to enter into. Now, an IDE is just an integrated developer environment. Essentially, that just allows you to visualize all of your coding files in one spot. Now, you want to come over to the side panel of whichever IDE you choose. Wink, wink, they'll all be the same. Why? Because they're all a fork of VS Code. So VS Code was the OG of this, and then Anti-Gravity by Google has been developed, and so is Cursor. Now, a fork just basically means that they've been built on top of it. Like if it's a fork of something, VS Code was the foundation, and because Anti-Gravity was built on top of it, it's a fork of VS Code. So VS Code is the foundation of all of this. So all of the icons and stuff will be the exact same. So if you come over to the left-hand side panel and you look up extensions, and the first thing you want to search for is Claude Code, it'll be the very first extension that you find, and it'll be the one verified by Anthropic. So I don't know why this is taking a while, but essentially it'll be the very first one that you see, and you'll just go ahead and download it. You'll see a little blue button like this that says install. There you go. And because I've obviously already installed it, you'll just see it here that says install. You just click it once and it'll go ahead and install it. Then what you're going to want to do is link it to your actual Claude account. So it'll prompt you to do either two things. Either you can sign in with your Claude subscription, which it'll take you to your browser through like the typical Claude OAuth setup, and you can just log in with your email. Or what you can do is then you can use your Claude subscription from the console where you've actually added credits and you can go on an API basis. I personally think it would be smarter just to use your Claude subscription because you would absolutely burn through way more money if you actually downloaded if you actually went based off of the credits. Now, the other extension that you saw here as well that you want to download is Live Server. Now, that just allows you to view all of the code files that Claude Code has drum up for you inside of your browser. So it'll be the first one here. Again, you just want to click install, and then that will allow us later in the video to go and look at what Claude has created for us. So the first thing we're going to want to do is once you've installed Claude Code, you should see it pop up either here on the left-hand side, or if you've already got something open, it'll be up here in the top right. So when you open that, you just want to click New Session after you've signed in, and then you should look a lot like this. Now, the first thing we're going to get it to do is actually create a claude.md file. Now, I'll show you mine personally that I have created all throughout my time. So now it doesn't actually show up here just because it's such a globalized file, but you can create claude.md files for specific projects. So we'll get Claude to create one here for us, and we'll get it to do. Hi Claude, I want you to create a claude.md file for me, and I want you to just make it a very bare bones basic claude.md file, which lays out basic formatting and other styling that is necessary for a very productive coding session. So obviously my dictation didn't go the best, but if you send that off, Claude will go ahead and create a very minimal claude.md file for you. Now this is my one that I've sort of built out just because of all the other skills that I use personally. So I've told it a little bit about me, and I've told it at the top in terms of it goes top to bottom in terms of how it should be producing the outputs, and then the bottom stuff is what it should actually be using. So obviously I told it never use em dashes or m dashes, never use commas, or use commas, full stops, and other proper grammar, basically. And then I've told it to, and this is really important because AI tends to hallucinate, whether it's OpenAI or Claude. Like if it doesn't know something, definitely ask. If multiple interpretations exist, show me all of them so that I can pick which one's best. If something's unclear, stop and ask me what it is so it just doesn't make stuff up as it goes along, and so on and so forth. Basically, it just gets more and more specific in terms of how it's going to tackle each coding task I give it. Now, part two is the actual skills that I've installed. So all of the front end UI design skills that I've added, I basically put them in here so that now I don't have to keep pasting in the GitHub URL every time I want to use it for this specific project. It's applied globally across everything, which is great. So that's my MD file. Now let's have a look at what Claude has created. So obviously it's very simple because we told it to be bare bones, but essentially use the English where you are, whether you're in the US or whether you're in the UK. Use the relevant English for you. We want it to not use any em dashes like my one, just because it gives it away that it's AI, and a whole bunch of other basic stuff. Literally just put in the prompt that I have and Claude will spit this out for you. So the next thing we're going to want to do is talk about the actual interface itself. So if you come down to the bottom, you'll see that we are on auto mode straight away. But obviously this is just the default and we have a whole bunch of other options. So auto mode will just auto select for you as soon as you just install Claude or even open a new chat. This is what will be there. The top one is the safest one. It'll just ask you for permission before like proceeding with any of its edits, which can be quite annoying. The second one is it will edit automatically. The third one is plan mode, which is really great. Now, for those of you who also know how .md files work, which is just a markdown file, which is essentially just a set of instructions, that can also function as a sort of a planning document, if you will, which I often use .md files for planning as well. So I never usually use plan mode because I usually get the Claude chat version or the Claude Cowork version. I tell it what I'm trying to do, and then it creates that MD file for me. So now it can just refer back every single time when I've laid out my full vision first. But if you're just like putting your thoughts straight into Claude Code from the get-go, the plan mode is a great way to go about that, because then it will plan everything out, basically doing the MD route inside of the Claude extension, and then it will go ahead and build it out for you. Now, I personally have mine always on bypass permissions, just because I don't want to keep hitting approve every single time. Obviously, I've put the effort to extra high. I find that obviously when you're on the max effort, it burns through tokens too much. And if you're on high, it doesn't have quite enough punch. So extra high I find to be the right medium of everything. Now, if we actually go and click here to look at the slash commands, we've got sort of a mini menu here. So obviously we've got some context things about attaching files. We've also got the model settings here. So obviously I've picked Opus because I want the best output, but obviously you can change it between whichever task you're doing. So if you're using Sonnet for like everyday tasks, that's great. You don't really need to use Opus for just your normal stuff. And obviously Haiku if you want to be extra conservative with your token usage. And then obviously I've also turned thinking on, so it will take a little longer to produce the output just because I did add that extra element of thinking, but the results will be better as a result of that. Then on the customize section, you've got all these different output styles, these agents, hooks, memories, permissions. We'll talk about MCP service at the end. We'll come back to that. And then obviously down the bottom, you can just have a play around with all of these. It gives you so many ideas in terms of all the different slash commands that are inside of the Claude extension. Obviously, it's got all of these skills that you've already added. So I've added the UX UI Pro Max skill, Super Base skill, and all the other ones that you can see scattered throughout here. You can also ask it to compact all of your chats. You can ask it to clear it and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you ever are stuck and you don't want to ask, or just have a look down through the slash commands, it'll give you a lot of different cool ideas. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually build something. So let's go and build out a one-page recipe website, which is what I've named my folder over here. Now I've already created a prompt for this, and while I send this off into Claude Code, I'm going to explain why I did what I did, and we can deconstruct it together. So this is only stage one, basically, of this three-part website. So we're going to create one page by one page, and then stage three is going to be to combine it all together. So essentially what I said here was build me a single page personal recipe website. Include a hero section. For those of you who don't know what a hero section is, a hero section is just the top viewport that you see when you load something up. It's just asked me a real quick question. It's just saying placeholder images. Yes, so we can just say you choose. So it'll go away and pick everything for us, which is great. Where were we? Oh, yes. For those of you who don't know what that hero section is, it's just as soon as you load into a website, it's the first sort of view you see. So a viewport takes up your entire screen from bottom to top, and the hero is just basically one viewport, or the top viewport that you have. And we've also told it to use the headline of My Famous Recipes and a short tagline like a collection of dishes I cook on rotation, something random. Then we've asked it to create something that has a featured recipes section with 4 cards, and we've actually listed the dishes: spaghetti carbonara, Thai green curry, banana bread, and Caesar salad, each with a placeholder image. Very key point here, not just some random like backsplash color, an actual placeholder image. So let's see if it actually does that, with the recipe name and a one-line description. And we've also we've also asked it to include an about this collection section with a short paragraph about loving home cooking. And we've also got it to add a footer with placeholder social links. And we've also told it to use a clean, modern design with warm, inviting colors, all inside of a single, also key detail here, inside of a single index.html file with index CSS, and make it to look polished and not cookie cutter. So a couple of key details here that stick out to me when I am going through this prompt. If we go from back to front, I've asked it to include everything in a single HTML file. So we shouldn't see any TypeScript stuff. We should see it all inside a single HTML file. Inline CSS basically just means it's not a dedicated CSS file. It's going to add it as it goes inside of the index.html file. Now, obviously, using a clean and modern design will obviously affect your Claude, or be dependent upon what skills you've added to Claude personally, and also what your claude.md file looks like. So obviously my claude.md file has a lot of design skills that I've added and that I've told it to use every single time. So obviously my output's going to be different to yours if you just go for the basic prompt that we've generated together. Then we've also asked it to add social links, and we've basically listed every single section of the website. So we've said the footer, we've said the hero section, we've said like the middle section, which is the set of cards with all 4 dishes, and we've also got it to add an about us section as well with a short paragraph. So that's basically removing all of the Claude Code guessing work that would possibly be done in a project like this. We've been very specific with every single component on the website we want. Now, obviously, this is a very sort of a bare prompt still. I've done that to intentionally replicate what you guys starting out would try and sort of do as a prompt. Obviously, my paragraphs are usually like 2-ish paragraphs minimum for each individual prompt, just because I want an exact result, which is why it's really helpful to either use the plan mode like we talked about inside of this Claude Code section, because that will help you develop sort of a much more in-depth MD file than this, because that's not very sufficient, but it'll get you by for now. But also it'll what were you saying? Oh yes, an MD file. So obviously if you're referencing an MD file, you can have a prompt about this with this lack of specificity. Why? Because all the information's inside of that .md file. Let's just change this back so I don't forget. So yes, that's why it's really important to keep an MD file with everything. I would even recommend like going into a Claude chat or a Claude Code chat to tell her what you're trying to build and let it flesh it out for you and ask you questions. So then when you come into Claude Code, your context window isn't just destroyed because you've just had basically a chat conversation with the coding stuff. So in my opinion, it's always best to separate the two of them out. So it's now done generating the first index.html file. And now we're going to go ahead and open it up. Now, if you remember at the very start of the video, we installed the browser or the live server extension, which is now going to come in handy. So come up to the top left where your files are, right click on index.html, and the first option you should see is open with live server. So that's going to open it into a live browser for you. And I'm going to bring you guys over to my browser now so you can see what I'm looking at, and we'll go through the first iteration together. Now, I can already see off the jump that it didn't listen to everything I told it, and we're going to go over that now. So obviously, I'm just looking up at the preview. I'm seeing an m dash, which the claude.md file says not to use. So that means it's in the code somewhere. So we're going to give it that as a correction. Now, in terms of this, for some reason, the sizing here is all wrong. It's not equal. So we'll go ahead and fix that. So let's give it some screenshots. So that's one screenshot. This is the other thing we didn't include in the file, which I always do, which we'll go back and add in a minute. So we'll take a screenshot of that and paste back into Claude Code. That's nice, and that's got everything as well. Now, obviously, it would be cool if we had some sort of image here for the footer. So we'll take a photo of that too. And we'll come back to Claude Code now that we've pasted all those individual images there. And we'll tell it that's not a bad first draft. However, there are M dashes throughout the project that I can see, particularly in the preview. So please remove them from the entire site. Also, please make sure that the image cards are the same size, and also make sure that all images are visible. And I also want you to add visual icons down the bottom in the footer for the social media stuff as well. It would make it look more professional with actual icons there. And I want you to screenshot every single viewport when you're done before you give it over to me to make sure that every single correction I've asked you to implement has been done. So that last line in particular is really key because I've done that. I've started to do that very recently with everything because I've added it into my claude.md file and the results have been astoundingly better. So now I'm basically creating some sort of, it's like a minor agentic flow because what's happening now is it's removing the binary input output because now it's actually starting to think for itself. When I've told it to now take a screenshot after it's done everything, now I don't have to go through and view the live stuff after it's created it. Now it can go and review its own work and make any necessary corrections based on the prompt I've given it. So I said, make sure you've implemented what I've asked you to do. So now it'll go back through this prompt, analyze all of the key points that I've asked it to do, and then it will look at the screenshot to determine whether or not it has done it successfully. And then it will go back, if it hasn't done it, for example, and it will go back and fix it. So while that is thinking and implementing the solution, let me double check that I haven't missed anything else from the main page. I think it all looks fine, which is good. We'll actually come back to the MD file and actually double check. Yeah, so we obviously don't have that inside of here. That's fine. We'll just ask Claude Code for now. But if you're doing this at home, make sure you add this particular step to your claude.md file and ask Claude Code to add it for you. So make sure you tell it to screenshot every single viewport when you're done before you give it back to make sure that every single correction that you've requested has been implemented. That little sentence and that little line alone will save you a ton of headache and a ton of time because at least I was struggling with that because I would ask it to do something very simple like change this and it would give it back to me in like 30 seconds and I would tell it again and again, you haven't implemented it. But as soon as I started to say, proofread your own work and take a screenshot to verify that you've done that, the result got much better overnight. So now it's going through to actually fix and address all the points one by one. And we can go back over to the browser to double check all of this. Once it's done, it will take, these things shouldn't take too long, particularly because we are doing such a light project, but obviously the more advanced you get, the more or the longer it will take your Claude Code to actually come in and implement everything. Obviously you guys are on the wrong page right now. So Claude's now going through and implementing every single point. So it's removing the M dashes for starters. Then it's actually going to go and fix the card sizing that wasn't even, and then it's going to clean up the asymmetric grid and the image that was broken. So that's good. So now it's detected that the image was broken, and now it's going to go through and fix that, and then add the SVGs and the image icons for the social media pages down the bottom in the footer that we've asked it to go and do. So I think it's almost time to go back and have a look. Although I can still see an M dash inside of the browser preview. So what also might be a good idea is to come back and restart the live server. So the best way to do that is to close the port down the bottom here, so that completely stops the live server, and then come back and relaunch it. Ah, there we go. It fixed the M dash at the title at the very end. See, that's why you always say double check before you give it to me, because it found it when it went back through and checked again. And that also just saved us having to elongate the context window by going back and forth again and having it produce more code. So now it's going through and checking, and now it's creating screenshots, which is great. Now, obviously, I think most of it's already done. Actually, I can see some problems. So let's let it go through with the... Okay, this is good. Can I show you guys this? No, it's currently going crazy with the screenshots. But essentially what's happening is it's opening its playwright skill, which is opening like a demo browser up, and it's using all the different screen sizes. So it's going to desktop to mobile to tablet, and it's getting smaller, or tablet than mobile, and it's getting smaller and smaller every single time. And it's just checking to make sure that everything's being implemented correctly. Now, I wonder if it's going to check the images in the footer, because that is still not correct. They're still huge, but to be fair, it is still going. And it's going to try and fix the banana bread image that it said isn't working currently. And I'm curious whether or not it's going to be able to do it. I'm going to drum up a prompt just in case it doesn't manage to fix those couple of things. So let me take a screenshot of this banana bread stuff. Sorry, you guys can't see what I'm doing. And we're also going to take a photo of this footer, which is huge and isn't proportionate at all. So this is what the footer looks like right now. Like, the images are way too big, and also the image is still missing here from the grid. Okay, so now the image has been fixed inside of the grid, which is great. So that can be closed. And now it's going through again and checking all 4 viewports to double check. Now, obviously, the footer is cooked, so let's go and prompt that, because I doubt it's going to fix that. I want you to go and look at these footer icons, because they're way too big and don't fit proportionately with the footer. So I wonder if it's going to go through the screenshots now and determine whether or not it was too big or not. It's done really well so far to go back and check its own work, but the trick will be, will it get to the bottom and observe the overly large icons which have not been scaled proportionally? I wonder. So while that's thinking and doing its thing, it's good that... Actually, let's go back from top to bottom. So we did all of that. Cool, so it added the icons. Then it scanned, because then we told it to make sure you remove all the M dashes. So it went through and did that, which is great. It found that one on its second pass through. Then it went through and began to fire up the virtual browser, the playwright stuff, and it began to screenshot every viewport, which you can see up here. So obviously it should be able to tell that that stuff down the bottom is huge and does not work. So hopefully it's going to fix that, which it didn't. So we'll tell it that the footer icons are way too big, which it should have picked up, and now it can see that. Which is odd that it needed me to tell it, but at least it fixed it very quickly. It didn't really have to think about it. So it clearly knew. The trick will be how it manages to shrink them to so it fits in with the general footer. And obviously on mobile, if you look at the screenshot it took, it's particularly bad just because now they're a single file. And obviously that would enhance or just increase the overall size of the page just because they have to scroll more. Because, I mean, they're ginormous. Um, but it should be able to fix that very quickly. Um, so another trick for you guys as well, when you're like reloading a virtual or a live server after your like development has done something, the the shortcut is, if you're on a Windows, it's Control Shift R, and if you're on a Mac, it's Control Shift R. Essentially, that just like hard refreshes the page. So if you've got caching problems where stuff is stored, essentially that'll just wipe all of that and sort of should get for you the most up to date version. Um, so it seems to be rerunning the viewport stuff, and it said that the huge ones it added were blowing up, so it's removed them. Okay, well, for the sake of this video, we're going to keep moving, but if you really wanted those icons, you could push back and get it to add them back in. So the next part of this website we're going to add is we're going to build sort of an interactive recipe scaler on another page. And essentially this is going to function like a artifact that we would build inside of Claude. Now this is a step up in terms of the complexity just because of the JavaScript element, which we'll run through in a moment. But this is kind of like your typical calculator artifact component that you'd build inside of Claude. So we can just fire that off. We don't need to keep reading those screenshots. Everything else is fine for now. So while that's doing that, let's I'll bring you guys back into the index.html page just to go through everything now that everything's been fixed. So obviously the EM dashes, or the M dashes, I keep saying EM, are gone. Now we have this cool navigation section up the top. So it'll take you, so every single section, I'll show you guys this actually. For those of you who aren't developers, this might be cool for you guys to know. Now obviously you are looking at code, but you don't have to worry about all of this. So obviously the cool part is when you get down, so this is all the CSS. So when we said inline CSS, this is part of it because it's in the same document. But also the cool part is that it's actually targeting the IDs. So the top of the inside the nav bar, those little um, those little menu items. Do you see down how in the, oh, you guys can't see that, but if you hover over them and you go down to the bottom left corner of your browser, you're going to be able to see the where it's going to go to, and you should see index.html hashtag recipes. Now, the way we got that is because it's actually linked it to the ID. So if you go hashtag anything inside of any sort of HTML coding environment, it's going to reference the actual ID. So that means it'll just take it down to that sort of viewport on the page, which is pretty cool. So that means we get that smooth scrolling. So we don't have to scroll all the way down the page. We can just click to the relevant section and it'll take us there straight away, which is fantastic. Now, obviously the for grid has been fixed. Now all images are the same size and they have found the banana bread image, which is great. This section was unchanged and obviously it removed those big social media icons. In fact, it did add them here. So that was cool. But obviously that's pointless because they should really be over there. And if you were going to spend time refining this, you would add them over there with just a simple plain words prompt. Now, obviously this is a very simple landing page, but this is just to give you guys an idea about how you would go about doing that. So let's come back to Claude Code to look at what it's managing to do on the next page front, on the calculator front. So obviously it's creating a new HTML page, which is essentially on the same level as the index page. And then on the third sort of go of this, we're going to combine them together like a proper website. So the navigation at the top will actually take you to the relevant page. Let's go. Okay, so now it's going through all of the individual screen sizes to double check that everything's working as it should. Which you guys can see. Now, let's scroll down to all of the example measurements that it's put out, just so we can get the most. Are we going to see the preview text? Here's the example. Oopsies, don't want to do that. Obviously, there's a lot of coded elements to it still, um, but that should be fine. So now it's saying that the mobile screenshot is fine. So like we did before, you want to come over to scalar.html, right click on it and click open in live server. That'll take you exactly back to where we were, basically. Yes, great. So now we've got original servings, new servings, and then we just need to paste in the ingredients that we want. Now I wonder if, oh, we can load the example, even better. So just like that, and you just click scale recipe and it's just scaled up, everything like that. So it's very simple calculation, but it did the job. Now I don't think anything else needs to be fixed on the coding front. No, it just gave us a rundown of everything, which is great. So now we're going to do the third sort of step is now we're going to combine them all together. So that should be a simple prompt as well. So essentially that just means it's going to add like a nav bar at the very top so that we can just go between the two pages seamlessly like a typical website. And then at the end of the video, we're going to look at MCP servers and how you can integrate them, which is going to be very helpful for you guys because whenever you think of using an extra tool, an MCP server just makes it a very easy way to do that. Now, if you're using Claude Chat or Claude or Codex, for example, they'll just be connectors / plugins that you're already using on the web version. So that will, okay, so cool. So like I said, it's going to add a nav, which will basically link both of them, and it will mark the active page as well. And let's analyze the prompt I gave it. It's going to say add it as a proper page on the website and add the nav bar at the top. And we want the styling to be the same between the two pages. That was important. And we also asked it to make sure that the navigation works in both different directions. Now, the thing will be to see whether or not the gap between or the headers on both pages are the same. I know AI sometimes tends to not do that, so it'll be very interesting to look at. So let's go back to the index.html page. Let's remove that. I'll bring you guys. Is it done fixing itself? Yeah, okay. I'll bring you guys back to Chrome to see what it's managed to do. So this is the index.html page. So now it's added up the top, it's added the page thing. Okay, so it did do that. So you see how the footers, or sorry, you see how the headers are not the same? So the gap and between the two is different and also where it is on the page. So obviously there's, these two are spread out, these two components, there's a big gap in the middle. And also when you click on the recep scaler, everything moves in. So that's not what we want. So obviously we're going to tell it, because it should know this by taking screenshots of everything. We're going to go back and say, the header is not the same between both pages. Can you ensure that it is the exact same, please? Now, obviously, I would be interrupting the flow of this current work if I was to submit that prompt now. But whilst it's doing that, let's go back to, oh, sorry, you guys are still on the browser version. I don't think there's anything else that should have changed. I think it kept it all pretty much what it was doing. So now the Playwright stuff is now opening different viewports to, sorry, different screen sizes to double check that everything is working and is and works on every screen size basically. And that's a cool little trick that you guys can do. It'll download the Playwright stuff for you automatically. It's a universal skill, and it'll just make sure that you don't have to go and do the testing for yourself. Like if you guys have built a website before, you would know that you would have to go through at the end and test all of the different screen sizes and do the media queries and test the max widths and stuff, and it's just a pain. Whereas this way, you can get Claude to go through and do it, and because that's been done, Claude actually found a bug, and so it's going to render it. It rendered it with a default underline. Whoops, and now it's going to go through and fix that, which is great. And then it'll go back at the very end. You can see all the screenshots appearing under the screenshot folder on the left-hand side as well. Which, I mean, it should be fine as it currently is. I don't think it needs to go through and really screenshot anymore. It's reading this PNG. I don't know why it's doing that. It's probably to double check. Is that in here? It is. Okay. So yeah, so after it's gone through and taken a screenshot of everything, now it's going to go through and double check. Okay, so this is where it's incorrect. It says the nav is now consistent on both pages, which we both know it's not. But to be fair, it hasn't looked at the desktop version yet. So when it looks at the... Actually, let's look at this. Yeah, okay. I have no idea how it's just said that they're the same because they're not. That's fine. Let's see if it manages to pick up. Actually, let's just stop it there because we don't need it to go through and look at all the photos because it already didn't get past the first one correctly. So that should go back through and make it adjust the width and the percentages of those headers because they really should be the same. Like, can you imagine if you went to like an about page versus the home page and like the header's different? Your eyes would probably get a shock and go, what the hell? And rightly so. So that should go through and fix that particular issue. I can't actually see any other issues on the website front. That's pretty much the only little thing I found. All the hover triggers are great and they all work. Uh, this section was great. We never really had to touch that and put everything in bold, or that one thing in italics in bold, which is cool. And also, obviously, if we have more time, we'd come back and make sure that these little icons would be over here in the line, and that would fit nicely. And obviously, the recipe scaler is just a single viewport, meaning that there's nowhere to scroll because it fits inside of our screen size, which is great. So now it has said that it's going to render an artifact inside of anti-gravity to look at that nav issue, which it should have actually already done, by the way. No, it hasn't. Um, and this is also... Actually, let's look at these screenshots because I know it's a problem on the dev version. It's probably another thing. Okay, so if we were developing the mobile version of this, we would tell it to use the hamburger menu up in the top here. This is, sorry for you beginners, this is more of the developer in me talking, but obviously you would need a mobile menu as well, which we didn't include in the prompt, so that would be something else we'd have to get it to do. And as evident in the screenshots, we obviously don't have any sort of hamburger menu of any kind up here, so we'd get it to do that as well. Once it goes through and double checks that everything is the same. Okay, there is a bit of an improvement, but it's still not totally the same. It's now saying it's pixel identical, but I don't know how it got to that conclusion because it's not quite. So I'm going to now screenshot both of these pages and give it back to Claude Code to tell it that they're not actually identical. They still move slightly, which is fine. You're almost there. They still do move slightly. Please ensure that they are the exact same. So that'll go through and quickly fix that. That shouldn't be very hard for it to quickly review and implement. But while it does that, now we've done the first page, which is the index.html page. We've added the calculator, and we've also now combined them. So as the Claude Code goes and finishes that, let's have a look at MCP servers. So for those of you who don't know what MCP servers are, they just stand for Model Context Protocol. The name doesn't mean anything. Just remember what it does. Essentially, it is like if you guys use Codex or ChatGPT, it's essentially a plugin, which is what they call it. But in Claude terminology, it's called a connector, or yeah, it's called a connector inside of Claude. So essentially, it's just a plugin that gives Claude Code access to outside tools, whether it be Notion, GitHub, your calendar, your email, Linear, and any other tool you can think of. Now, essentially, once that's installed, you can just ask Claude Code to like read your Notion, and it'll pull and go and search for the relevant information on your behalf. Think of MCP as kind of like a backdoor login that's always connected, so you can pull from the tool at any time. Now, if you're starting out, you'd probably want to start with like the Notion MCP just because it's the easiest to authenticate. Now, while that's... Oh, I'll show you the MCPs I have actually. That's a good thing we can do whilst that's finishing. So if you come down to the bottom here and you just click the slash, you'll see all the options here, and MCPs will be under customize. But if for some reason you can't see it there, literally just type \MCP and it'll be the only one that pops up. So what you can see here is you can see all of my MCPs that I've connected. And obviously if some need re-authenticating, you can just double click on that. It'll take you to an OAuth screen. And then once you authenticate that again, it'll be good to go. So it said that it should be done. So let's put this to the test. Let's see if the headers are actually going to change. You guys can watch with me. Yes. Oh, there was a little... Okay, it's all staying the same now. Very good. So that is the entire... That's the entire build for this video. But as we wrap up, let's go over again what are the main key use cases for when you should be using Claude Chat versus Claude Cowork versus Claude Code. Now, in my opinion, you should be using Claude Chat when you're just thinking, drafting, or asking questions. Even when creating like plan or MD files for this, you can use just normal Claude Chat or Claude Cowork. You should be using Claude Cowork in particular when you're creating or working with files that involve like multiples at once, or when you want like a workflow to run independent, like or unattended, and you're scheduling stuff. But you should be using Claude Code when you're building something from scratch, like a website, a tool, a script, a program, or anything that's really using over 20 files, particularly with Cowork, because that's like the limit with the general chat model. Whereas Cowork can go and read all the files on your computer and like go through an entire folder. Like if you go back and watch yesterday's video, it went through like a whole bunch of invoices. And I actually did that for my last company where we had a whole bunch of different directors who had put personal money into the company and bought stuff on their own personal cards. And I got Cowork to go through all of those transactions. I gave it all the bank statements and it allocated successfully, which would have taken me hours to sit through and do. So that was really helpful. Now, in terms of where you would actually use them, in terms of like a beginner usage, most beginners would just stay on chat because it's where they're most comfortable. Maybe 20% of you guys might venture out into the Cowork world to play around with it, and 10% of you will venture out into the coding or the Claude Code aspect, whether it's in the terminal, inside of the Claude app, or inside of the IDE world like we did today. Now, that 10% of you, and if you actually apply that sort of pie demographic into your usage, if you use Claude Code 10% of the time, even though it's the smallest slice, it's the biggest piece of that pie. And it is actually the moment you just stop using AI and you actually start using it to build. It's like having a whole bunch of employees at your disposal without the cost. It's like hiring a development team without having to pay $10,000-$20,000 for them to build out something. You can literally create an MVP the same day and start showing people and say, hey, this is what I got. What do you think? And you can really start building your own dream and your own vision without having to pay a lot of money. Now, if you haven't been building along with me in this video, make sure you go to download Visual Studio Code, or whether you download Anti-Gravity or Cursor, it doesn't matter which one. Just install it. Make sure you grab the Claude Code extension from the extensions tab. They're going to all look the same. So just come over to the extensions thing and type Claude Code and install it, or install it. Then make sure you set up a claude.md file. Then create anything with it. The way I got more experience with these tools was just by sitting in there, blocking out time and sitting down and playing around with it and seeing what its capabilities were. That's when I started to realize it was generating me AI slop, and then I started to go and search for GitHub repos that had cool UX UI design skills that helped improve it. So the amount of time I've just spent sitting down with Claude Code, building out cool things, adding scroll triggers, and seeing what it could do has really helped me understand what it can do and know its limitations. And then obviously try and build something, like try and build the website we did today, try and build a calculator, try and build an artifact type document, and really the world's your oyster. So speaking of different versions, whether it's Codex or Claude Code, the next series we're going to be doing on the channel is Codex. So I'll be going from start to finish on inside of Codex. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those that series. And I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video.